Aloha kako! I'm Kimo, Alama, Keaulana, and welcome to my home, Ho'onanea, in the Nanakuli homestead. And I'm so glad you're here to join me because I'm going to share with you the Uli'uli. Mrs. Mary Kavena Pukui said something about the Uli'uli, and she said, the Uli'uli must be a special implement because it has feathers on it. And we know that in the Hawaiian culture, feathers were reserved for royalty because the birds, they fly up close to the domain of the gods, and they're messengers to heaven and back to earth. So the Uli'uli has feathers on it. I never did know about Uli'uli without feathers until maybe about 1970 or 1971, when Auntie Nona Beamer was doing some research with Hawaiian implements, and she had pictures of Uli'uli without feathers. That was the first time I ever saw Uli'uli like that. But I grew up with Uli'uli with feathers like this. I had some very old Uli'ulis that I couldn't find them in storage, and they're from like the 1920s and 30s. And those Uli'uli look something like this, where the feathers were completely laid down flat this way. And when I was a child and growing up, I knew a woman named Mrs. Kapulani who lived up in Palolo. And I saw an Uli'uli that she was working on. And this part, the feathered part, this in Hawaiian, this part is called the heke. Heke means the top. And I'll get to that a little bit more later on. But this heke part were wires, circular wires. And she was going to be attaching the feathers the old Hawaiian way by tying tufts of feathers onto these rows of wires. And I think that's how they must have done it in the old Hawaiian days. Well, of course, not with wire, but probably with maybe ni'au, coconut leaf midrib, or something else where they could make a circular framework to make the heke. And I know that they used like rooster feathers in the old days to make their Uli'uli. So, and then later on when introduced feathers came in, like with parrots and ducks and things like that, we made the heke out of other kinds of introduced birds as well. So this is called the heke. This part here, where the fabric is, this is called a pa'u. And in old Hawaiian times, of course, this was made out of kapa. And this au, the handle part, is called the au. It was made out of hau wood, or vili vili. And I was told that the hau and the vili vili were light woods because you didn't want to use woods that were heavy when you're dancing hula. So the hau and the vili vili are both woods that float in water. And so we use hau in a canoe making. Vili vili we use in surfboard making. So these are very light woods. And this is called the olo, right down here. Now, the Uli'uli we have made nowadays, the olo is made out of la'amia. Okay, the la'amia is the tree gourd. La'amia is not native to Hawaii. The la'amia came to us sometime in the 19th century. Before the la'amia was introduced to Hawaii, there was a variety of ipu, or gourd, that Hawaiians grew that was about this size. And the variety of that ipu is called iole. And I don't think it's grown here in Hawaii anymore. Or they used very, very small coconut shells. One of the old Uli'uli that I can't find, I want to show you, is made out of coconut shell. And to get these olo cleaned out so that it would give you a good clean kani took a long time. Like with coconut, you're going to have to get all that meat out. And even with la'amia, it takes a lot of work to get the inside out. And how they did in the old days, I was told, was that they soaked the inside with water, preferably salt water, to soften it up and to rot it out. And then they would fill it with small pebbles and then wash it out repeatedly until it was perfectly clean on the inside and dried thoroughly. And with the Hawaiian pump drill, they would drill holes. One of the old uli I have, I think it was made in the 1920s, had 3 holes instead of the customary 4 that we have. So they had 3 or 4 holes in it. Now to give the kani, the sound inside, they use perfectly round, small little pieces of stone or pebble that you could find along the seashore. And they would clean them up and fill them up to make a kani. But today we use seeds from the wild canna called the ali'ipoi in Hawaiian. And again, ali'ipoi is not a native Hawaiian plant. It's an introduction to Hawaii. And the wild canna, it's not so wild anymore here in Hawaii. It's getting very, very hard to find. But the wild canna is very, very hard. And so when you fill the olo, whether it's new, la'amia, or even iole, the gourd, it gives a nice kani. You want a nice, bright, clean kani to the uli'uli. And in the old days, to wrap the au, the handle, they used lauhala. Later on, the lauhala was replaced with raffia. And now I think we use rattan, huh? Yeah, which is a good material. So I'm going to go and repeat the parts of the uli'uli. This is called the heke. This cloth part here is the pa'u, the handle, the au, and here we have the olo made out of la'amia. Oh, I want to tell you a story about the la'amia. Next time you go to the Royal Mausoleum up at Nu'uanu, go to the comfort station. You're going to find a la'amia tree there. That la'amia tree was planted, I guess about maybe over 100 years ago by a man named Mr. Malulani Beckley. Malulani Beckley was the kahu, the caretaker of the Royal Mausoleum prior to the 1940s. Malulani Beckley was a hula implement maker. We didn't have hula supply store like how we have now. So we're very, very lucky we can go to a place to get it. In those days, you had to go to somebody who knew how to make these implements and specialize in hula implements. Malulani Beckley was one of them. I was told that Malulani Beckley had 2 students, and I believe he only had 2 students. One man was named Mr. Ambrose Hutchinson, and I was told he was Hapakepani, and the other man was, I think, was his name Bungwo Cop? Well, I called him Father Cop. Father Cop was the father of the Hula Supply Center on the corner of King and Isenberg Street, across from the old Honolulu Stadium. He learned how to make his hula implements from Malulani Beckley up in Nu'uanu. So you know, there is a continuity of how craftsmanship and artistry is passed on. Now let me get to the uli'uli and how it was used in the old days. The older uli'uli have shorter au, and the au are getting longer and longer nowadays, and that is telling us something. Is that teachers of the more recent times, I think they're teaching their students to hold their au like this, and that is not how the old timers taught how to hold the uli'uli. The old timers wanted the uli'uli to have the best maximum kani. So we were taught that you're going to hold the au over here in the web of your hand, and your thumb and your pointing finger will let the heke just rest on it, just like this. So my fingers are actually loose. Can you folks see that? You folks are good. Okay, now these 2 middle fingers, you're just going to use this to brace the uli'uli, and that's all. You don't want to choke the uli'uli, because when you start to shake the uli'uli this way. You notice that the uli'uli oscillates very, very nicely. Now, if you grab an uli'uli and choke it, you're going to confine the oscillation like this. You see the difference? Okay, now I'm gonna hold it again like how I was taught. The old timers taught the hula. Okay, very loosely but firmly. Like this, just on the whipping of the hand, and just bracing it with these two fingers. And then, you see, just like that. It's not gonna fall down, because you're gonna use your thumb too to brace it. And so you're gonna have a nice oscillation. Now, if you grab hold of the owl with all your fingers, this is what you're gonna get. See the difference? Ah, of course. Okay, now, I noticed another thing too with more modern choreography in the hula. The uli'uli is used to count cadence in the hula, the timing, and so that your left hand is free to gesture. But more and more I see that modern teachers are using the uli'uli sort of as a prop. But in the old days, the old timers considered it as a cadence keeping instrument. More prop would be the ulili. Okay, this ulili again has three gourds, la'amia, and I think in the old days was also made out of iole, type of ipu. I did see ulili made out of niu. These two olo are fastened tight to the main stick, and this one is free. And so that when you hook or you pull, makes this sound. Now, I was told that the ulili started off, or sometimes it's called the kolili. The ulili or the kolili started off as an amusement. And then a few hula schools started to use ulili to do hula and to make movements and things like that. We don't see this hula very often anymore because it's tricky. If you don't have enough of a pull and a momentum, you're gonna have, and it's kind of shame when you have to wind it up and everybody else is dancing. Yeah? So the ulili is a little bit tricky, but it's the same basic kind of effect with the ali'i poi or the pebbles inside the end ones, and this is free. But let me show you some movement with the uli'uli. We went to hula and we learned the first movement that was taught to us was called the ki'ipa. Ki'ipa is also known as the vamp or as the common hula. And the ki'ipa was just shaking the uli'uli and landing here by your knee. And then the left hand is coming out like this. Yeah? Nowadays, I see on the ki'ipa, people are a little bit more stiff because I think they want to get their groups precise in the hula. But then you lose that nice fluid movement from the hula. And so that is called the ki'ipa, and just gently tapping it like that on the vavai. But we don't sit like this in the hula. We sit on our knees like this. Yeah, kukuli. That's it. Just tucked in underneath. And then some hula schools teach it with the legs going on the outside. I think that is more of a Hawaii Island kind of style of a sitting. I sat like that when I was young, but if it was 60 years ago, I could do it. But Mr. Ilala Ole, that's the hula school I largely descend from, sat like this. And this is with the toes in the back. Not crossing the toes though. You just sit just like that. And so we had done the hula like that. And then the upper body was free to move too. So everything dances in the hula. The hand, the head, the body. Hey, no kalakaua. Okay, now did you notice that my heke is facing up? And even when I did this motion, it faces up, and there's a reason. More modern teachers and dancers will do this. But heke means the top, or the best, or the foremost. And when you're honoring an ali'i, the symbolism of the heke, meaning the top, will always face the top. Isn't that beautiful? But these are the things that our Hawaiians knew, and they understood conceptually with our words and our language, and how it affects the movements of the hula. Well, I think that's all that I have to share with you about the uli'uli. And then next time I'll share something else with you. Okay? Aloha.
Welcome to our Pasifika, powered by the world's largest Polynesian dance store, Aloha Hula Supply. Become a member to enjoy video content, monthly specials, quarterly giveaways, and discounts on premium workshops. Together, let's learn, share, teach, and grow as we uplift our cultures and support each other. Mahalo!